Hey guys, let's get more news from Steelers, but first don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your like. Steelers DL Cameron Heyward clears concussion protocol, expected to play versus Bengals. Pittsburgh Steelers defensive captain Cameron Heyward progressed through NFL concussion protocol and is on track to play in Saturday's game against the Cincinnati Bengals. A message posted to the X, formerly Twitter, account of Steelers spokesman Burt Lauten stated Heyward, a three-time All-Pro defensive tackle, has been cleared by an independent neurological consultant. Heyward entered protocol after this past Saturday's loss at the Indianapolis Colts. He played 75% of the Steelers' defensive snaps in the game, and there was no obvious hit absorbed or play during which he might have been injured. Heyward was listed as a limited practice participant Tuesday and practiced fully Wednesday, per the league-mandated injury report. He is expected to address reporters after Thursday's practice. The 34-year-old Heyward, a 13-year veteran, missed 6 games earlier this season because of a groin injury. He has 30 tackles, 23 solo, 6 for loss, 2 sacks, and 3 QB hits this season. When did this become okay? In Pittsburgh, Dan Orlovsky sees negative culture hurting Steelers. Former Steelers QB Ben Roethlisberger caught a lot of flack a week ago for coming out on his podcast after Pittsburgh lost to the New England Patriots at home and questioning if his former team had lost the Steeler way. Roethlisberger mentioned that he heard some of the leaders in the locker room stating some players are in it just for themselves rather than the team, going against the culture that Pittsburgh had established as one of the league's best franchises. Several have jumped on Roethlisberger's statement, especially after the team's third consecutive loss to the Indianapolis Colts last Saturday, questioning how a franchise with as much pride and tradition as the Steelers have gotten to this point. Dan Orlovsky of ESPN appeared on First Take and gave his thoughts on the deterioration happening in Pittsburgh. When did this become okay in Pittsburgh? Orlovsky said on First Take. The Pittsburgh that I grew up watching and played against would have never said this or allowed this. Woody and I played on bad teams. We dealt with a lot of this stuff where it was me, not we. In Pittsburgh with Ben Roethlisberger and Hines Ward and Heath Miller, those guys were never a part of something like this. The Pittsburgh Steelers I grew up watching had the guys Orlovsky mentioned, examples of what the culture is supposed to be like in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's defense was the toughest in football with OLB James Harrison and Troy Polamalu flying around making plays and punishing opposing ball carriers every time they touched the ball. The offense played physical too with Roethlisberger playing through numerous injuries while Ward and Miller took great pride in blocking as skill position players while still starring as pass catchers when they got their opportunities. That hasn't been the case this season as the Steelers have dealt with several issues when it comes to the team's culture. The one grabbing all the headlines right now is George Pickens' lack of effort as a blocker against the Colts and his comments to the media earlier this week. However, more instances stick out from this season, including Deontay Johnson not blocking anyone in the Bengals game a few weeks back. He sulked after missing a touchdown catch the play before, failing to do anything when RB Jaylen Warren fumbled the football, allowing the Bengals to recover. Another cultural problem that sticks out is RT Chukwuma Okorafor reportedly getting benched for comments made during the Jacksonville Jaguars game, venting his frustration over the coach's play calls. You never used to hear about players taking plays off or getting benched for talking back to the coaching staff, but here we are. Both OLB TJ Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick have called out this team for the overall lack of desire to practice, players expecting to just show up and play well on Sundays rather than put in the work necessary to be great. That's a pretty damning sentiment that is shared between two of the leaders on this team as both have relentlessly worked to get level they are at today. Other teams are starting to see the deterioration of the culture in Pittsburgh as well, with Bengals WR Tyler Boyd citing Pittsburgh's issues as a lack of camaraderie amongst the players. Orlovsky is right in saying this Steelers team isn't the same as past ones. That 2008 defense was one of the most cohesive units this franchise has ever seen, playing together in dominant fashion to lead this team to a Super Bowl title. Guys played through injuries for each other, did the dirty work for others to get the glory, and held each other accountable if someone wasn't meeting the bar. The fact of the matter is that this Steelers team doesn't have that same culture or leadership the great Steelers teams of the past had. Sure, they have superstar players like Fitzpatrick and Cameron Hayward, but they don't have that sense of accountability those teams had, especially at the quarterback position with QB Kenny Pickett needing to take the reins despite being a second-year pro. This ship appears to be sinking and fast. The Steelers may not be able to keep it afloat in 2023, but they must diligently work this offseason to get this team back to that culture of excellence this franchise embodied for decades if they truly wish to compete for a Super Bowl in the near future. 2 members of the Carolina Panthers made the Pro Football Focus list of the top 100 impending free agents. The 2023 Carolina Panthers are not a good team, but that doesn't mean they don't have any good players. Pro Football Focus recently compiled their list of the top 100 impending free agents, and 2 separate Panthers earned a spot at the table. Before we get into it, it's worth mentioning that free agency itself does not begin until the middle of March. Between now and then, the Carolina Panthers could easily re-sign either one of these players to a long-term deal or use the franchise tag to prevent them from reaching the open market. With rumors that Scott Fitterer might be on the way out, Carolina probably won't make any big moves in the immediate future, but there is a very real chance that the next general manager signs at least one of these players to a big money contract. Without further ado, the following players made the list. It's no secret that Brian Burns is easily the best player on the Carolina Panthers, and is therefore one of the top impending free agents in the league. Several teams have tried to trade for the pass rusher over the past few seasons, but none have succeeded. While he hasn't put up the same sack numbers in 2023, he's still one of the better players in the league at a premium position. Playing in 13 games so far, the former first-round pick has recorded 6 sacks, 37 tackles, 13 tackles for loss, 15 quarterback hits, and a 78.2 PFF grade. The Steelers are interested in hiring Brian Burns. While the sacks are lower than usual, his quarterback hits are right on line with his typical numbers and his PFF grade is actually a career high. Frankie Luvu, meanwhile, isn't nearly as big of a name, but he's still a valuable player in this defense. While he's no Luke Kuechly, the linebacker has established himself as a strong all-around player, recording 4.5 sacks, 104 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, and 8 quarterback hits. If the Panthers can't re-sign Brian Burns as a free agent, it could go down as the organization's biggest failure, and that's saying something. In case you hadn't noticed, Carolina hasn't been a particularly competitive team over the past few seasons, and they've had opportunities to trade Burns for premium draft picks. The Los Angeles Rams were reportedly willing to give up 2 first-round picks for Burns at the 2022 trade deadline, but Carolina said no. Additionally, the Bears reportedly wanted Burns in the original trade for the first overall pick, but the Panthers opted to send over DJ Moore instead. The only reason a team would do something like that is if they believed Burns was a foundational building block for the organization. If he walks for nothing, heads should roll. Frankie Luvu, however, might be on the way out. The Panthers currently have $38.4 million in 2024 cap space, so they could sign Luvu if that was their top priority. However, this roster has so many holes that they should invest in other positions instead of linebacker. Bryce Young has not had a good rookie season, but he's also had nothing to work with. If the Panthers truly want to see if he can become a franchise quarterback, they'll need to invest in as many offensive free agents as possible. At least one of T. Higgins, Mike Evans, and Michael Pittman should join the Panthers, and there is no such thing as too many good offensive linemen. Once Burns is locked up long-term, Carolina should devote all their resources to the offensive side of the ball. Sadly, that probably means Luvu is on the way out. And you fan, what do you think of the Brian Burns situation? Leave your opinion in the comments.